Come with me to a magical place where being labeled the pork queen is a compliment, where being nice is just a way of life, and where all leaders of the free world must pass through. Welcome to Iowa. Whether you're a current Iowan, an Iowa expat, or an Iowan at heart, this show is for you. This is the Iowa Podcast. Real Iowans, real talk, no drama. I'm Justin Brady, and for those that have not been to Northeastern Iowa, it's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy how beautiful it is up there. Iowa gets the reputation for being flat, and the only reason for that is because most people drive through it on 35 or 80, and I would guess, I'm not a historian, but I would guess that the reason the 35 and 80 go through those areas is because they were the most flat. That would be my guess. But Northeastern Iowa is insane. You feel like you're in like a storybook in a fantasy world. And so to dig into that, now people who haven't been there, they're like, yeah, right, whatever. But it's absolutely true. So, but I have verification. Today I brought with me Kenny Slocum, the Naturalist and Resource Manager at Clayton County Conservation. And you guys are right up there, right on the northeast border of the state, right, Kenny?
That's right. We are one county south of Minnesota on the Mississippi River.
And so thank you so much for joining me on the Iowa Podcast. I really appreciate it. We're going to talk about Missouri today, though, sadly. No, I'm just kidding. Totally kidding.
Lovely state as well.
Totally kidding. We're going to talk all about Clayton County. You guys have a lot of cool stuff going on in there. I want to talk about there's this restored 19th century motor mill historic site inn. I want to talk about that, but I want to push that a little later in the show because the first thing I want to talk about is the very, very new thing that just happened, which is this modern campground. You're just finishing up. You're just finishing this up. When is it supposed to be finished and ready for use?
So we are looking to have this ready to go by May of 2025. They are literally today putting in the shower houses.
Wow.
And it'll be our first campground that we've ever had with electrical hookups and dump sites and something. A lot of our campers really love the primitive campsites, and we're not getting rid of any of those. We're just adding one out here at the Osborne Nature Center, which hasn't had a campground since 2007, and none of our parks have ever had like a full amenity site. So very exciting.
You say May of 2025, so we still have to wait a year.
Correct. I'm going to say that for now.
Well, get out there and get it done, Kenny. So let's, when you say modern...
Trust me, they don't want me doing the electrical out there. That's not going to help anybody.
Today, I really want to talk to you about like the uninitiated campers. And I'll be honest, this is something I've always wanted to do, is just go camping with some friends. And then it just like never has worked out. And so for those that don't know how to camp, those that are intimidated by it, I can think of no better location than Northeast Iowa.
That's right.
Generally, the corners of Iowa, I mean, I can say this because I live in Des Moines, the corners of Iowa are like far cooler than Central Iowa, and I live in Central Iowa. I'm going to get a lot of hate for that, but it's absolutely true.
I mean, there's some fun geography behind that stat, but I would agree with it.
But so generally, I want to talk about the uninitiated and non-campers today.
Sure.
But what is different when you say a modern campground? You mentioned shower houses. What is different than a modern campground and what you call what did you call it? A primitive campground?
Primitive campground.
Which I love that. I love that. But what's the difference and what are you currently building? Like, what can people expect?
Sure. So as the kids say, there's levels to this, right? So there's your full-blown backpacking where you're throwing everything on your back and hiking in for hours and you're way away from everything. That can be really intimidating to people. Slightly less intimidating is like primitive tent camping, which would be, there's maybe pit toilets and a fire ring, but that's about it. And then what we're building out here at Osborne is kind of your more what you would think of when you think of like RV camping. So we'll have sites for RVs where they can actually plug in. There's going to be a dump station where they can empty their septic. And then showers, which is really nice if you're going to be outside in the summertime for any amount of time, quite frankly.
And so those are the features, basically. Modern hookups,
Correct.
Electric, like if someone has an RV or something, they can hook up into plumbing. Is that kind of how it works?
This one won't have plumbing. Some of the really heavy duty places do. This one will have a dump station, so you would use your RV, but we'd have a place to dump it off on your way out.
For your gray water and stuff like that.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Correct.
And so you have centralized shower units then that people would, they'd hook up and they'd walk over to use the shower units, is essentially what you're saying.
Yep.
And so you haven't had that before?
We never have, no.
Why? No, why is that? Is it just because people? Is it just because people were like, no? Was there this big movement against it? Like people like, no, you got to do it the old school, the right way, or was it just
Justin,
just a budget
exactly
thing?
The opposite.
Yeah. Okay.
We have had people clamoring. This has been in our long range vision plans going back to like the early 2000s, as kind of that. I won't call it glamping, but that more comfortable, I'll say, camping style got more and more popular kind of through the 2000s.
Right. Yeah.
And so the reason we've never had one is because they are not cheap.
Oh.
And it takes kind of a lot of legwork and logistics, and you kind of you want to have the right place too, right? Because we place a lot of value on conservation. So ripping up a prairie or a forest to put a campground in is generally not great.
Oh.
But I mean, in my personal opinion, I should say, there are contexts where that's fine.
No,
but
I get it.
Out here, we have it was actually started back in the 60s as we think, no one took good notes back then, we think a Christmas tree farm that nobody ever harvested the Christmas trees. So it's kind of
interesting.
It's this big pine plantation, and they all kind of started aging out at the same time, and we're all dying. And we were back there cutting them down because they kept falling across our trails. And we were like, wait a minute, this is a big blank spot.
Yeah. Oh, got it. So this is the challenge: is you didn't know where to put it, and you didn't want to destroy a bunch of stuff. And then when all these pine trees started just eroding and causing a problem, you're like, hey, there's the solution.
There we go. Yep. And it's close to our existing kind of utilities that we have here. This is our headquarters here at the Osborne Nature Center. So everything just kind of aligned to make things logistically a lot easier. And we started digging up lots and lots of grant funding, and here we are.
Digging up a little bit of soil and some grant funding at the same time. So it is still intimidating for a lot of people because I think they like the idea of it, going out there and getting away from it all. And, they like the idea of it, but it's still quite intimidating for some people. And so I think getting people over that hump is the challenge. And so you have a lot of programs that do just that. Can you maybe we should start with the River Rats day camp.
Sure.
Can you start with that to explain to people what that is? That's for the kids, I think.
That's for the kids. Yep. So that'll be looking more at the 10 to 15-year-old age range. And that's really just to kind of introduce them to some of the, a lot of these water activities are extremely popular around here, whether it's fishing or kayaking or paddling. We've got some of the most beautiful paddling rivers, not just in the state, but in, I would say, a big part of the region around here. But if you weren't ever taught how to do that as an adult, you are maybe intimidated to teach your kids. And so this is kind of an opportunity for them to get some of that experience, and in a safer environment too. We, for the uninitiated to Northeast Iowa, it's hard to find flat water. So like lakes, quiet streams.
Oh, that matters.
That's where you want to kind of cut your teeth a lot of the time before you're running into rapids and stuff like that. So this River Rats is going to start on some of the quieter, like we've got a pond here at Osborne that's a perfect place to kind of practice your kayak paddles, your canoe strokes, all that good stuff. And we've got a gentle little stretch of the Volga River right outside the Nature Center too, which is awesome to explore. If it's high enough to paddle, it's great. If it's too low to paddle, it's one of the coolest creek seining spots you've ever seen.
So this actually really matters to me, because when you get in a environment that is new to you. Now, I grew up on the lake. I live in Des Moines, but our family went to the lake all the time. We still go to the lake all the time. And
now which lake are we talking?
Lots of few. Yeah, well, so Table Rock, Okoboji, a lot of lakes around here. A lot of lakes around here as well. Sailorville, a lot of but Okoboji and Table Rock are very, very big. And, so, I'm familiar generally with the fact that there's terrain under the surface of the water, and there are, there are generally things to look out for. And it's just kind of second nature to me.
Right.
I mean, I'm not a lake expert, definitely not, but I kind of get it. My uncle was like instrumental in teaching me how to boat and do little maneuvers in the water and stuff like that. But when we went, this is what's interesting is my wife and I went on a vacation last year. We did some paddleboarding in the ocean, and there are currents in the ocean, and they're not, there are currents and there are tides. And so we noticed when we were coming back into this cove area, we were fighting against the tide, and it took us forever to get back in. And we were like making inches at a time. And so having that guide or having someone is really, really a big deal to initiate someone. And then after that, they kind of get it and they're like, oh, this all makes sense. But you kind of need someone to point things out to you. And so is that basically what you're trying to achieve for different age groups?
That's exactly right. Yeah, it's just getting that basic comfort level with somebody who you can look to and like, should I panic? And if they're not panicked, then it's probably okay.
Yeah. That's exactly right. And I think I want to really zoom into the fact that you said when we're training people on this stuff, we take them to certain areas that are calmer water because, you're in Clayton County, you're on a river. And rivers don't move slowly. And so that's a big deal to know where to find those waterways.
Yes. Yeah. And they can be a little bit, really some of the best slack water you can find is on the Mississippi River, but that comes with its own hair-raising concerns.
Yeah.
Especially if you're taking kids out there.
Like I said, they're not really that much of a concern once you understand. And once you have knowledge, but without the knowledge, it does become a concern. Very simple things can become dangerous things if you don't have the knowledge. Owls. This is the other thing that's kind of fascinating. Talk about your owls program because it's not your educational programming doesn't stop with children. You have a pretty wide span.
No, we have kind of made it a focus to try and hit more of those age groups because it's very easy to find our way into classrooms and stuff for those younger age groups. But how do we hit that kind of demographic where kids are just forming their outdoor instincts? And then what do you do for those folks who have maybe kind of aged out of some of those activities? And how do we still create that sense of place for them to be able to appreciate where they're from? And that's really what the Owls tours are all about. That's older, wiser, livelier souls. So there's not really like a hard and fast age limit on it, but it tends to gear more towards older folks looking to get together and explore some interesting corners of their local neighborhoods that they maybe don't know that well.
And how's that programming different then? Because I'm assuming they're not doing rock walls.
No, that's right. So each year they kind of settle on.
Dude, I'm 41, and just for those that I'm 41. I just turned 41. I'm not doing rock walls either, y'all.
No, it's surprising how quick some of that stuff slips through your fingers, right?
Don't remind me. Don't remind me, Kenny.
No pun intended.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah.
But no, so Owls is kind of a little more. It's less us doing the programming and more us kind of providing an avenue for people to get together. Especially like retirees who, a lot of our, for better or for worse, a lot of our social lives are work based. So what the Owls program is really about is, we kind of load them up into our big 15-passenger van and take a tour to an interesting site and let the site hosts kind of show them around. And like this month, they'll be going to Turkey River Farm, which is an organic produce farm just up the way here from Osborne.
Oh, cool.
And just learn a little bit about that operation, something that is maybe a public site, maybe not necessarily a public site, but an interesting little thing going on in their backyard that they may or may not have experienced. And then, get together and have lunch together at a restaurant and commune. So talk about what we learned.
Yeah. So there aren't any situations in the Owls program where you're like, all right, now jump in the water and, you're going to, there's none of those. It's no unexpected activities like that. It's mostly just like take the scenery in, learn about the scenery and enjoy a community.
That's exactly right. Yeah. If there's a physical activity involved, it's usually not terrifically demanding. Sometimes it will be, like a light canoe trip on one of the backwaters.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So somewhere that again is relatively easy for everybody to navigate and safe and hopefully interesting and hopefully somewhere that, a lot of these folks have lived here their whole lives and maybe they've never seen it.
Yeah. I mean, the only aspect of northeastern Iowa I've seen is from the road driving through it and staying at a couple places. And it would be the reason.
Justin, for shame.
I know. That's why I had you on here. And I'm just like, man, I would love to get in it more because it's just absolutely gorgeous. I'm not, and by the way, everybody, I'm definitely not getting paid by Clayton County to say that. It's just a beautiful area. There's also
we don't need to pay for it. It's lovely.
Yeah, there's also a family element to this as well. You have classes for like families who are wanting to learn. So if it's like a dad wanting to teach his kids how to camp, but he's not exactly sure how to do that, can you talk about those programs too?
Yes, absolutely. So this family camping program we'll have coming up here on June 28th is the opportunity to do just that. So it'll actually be led by the other naturalist here, Abby Harkrader, who is like one of the most fantastic campfire chefs you've ever seen.
What?
Because that's the big one, right? Is like there's only so many times you can eat hot dogs, and
yes, yeah,
you can burn hot dogs over a fire, and so she's really good with like your cast iron, your breakfast, which is definitely an art form when you're tent camping.
Kidding.
And yeah, it's the same thing as the paddling, right? Like if you didn't grow up doing it, all of a sudden you got kids of your own and you never really learned how, and maybe that sounds like a bit bigger headache than it really is once you have somebody kind of showing you the ropes.
I mean, one of my buddies was a Boy Scout. I never did the Boy Scouts, but we were doing a campsite just for a day. And again, I'm really putting myself out there, people. I didn't know the easy. I knew how to make a fire because we had a fireplace growing up in our house, like a wood burning fireplace.
Oh, yeah.
So I understood that concept. But as stupid as this sounds, I didn't understand just harvesting stuff from around your area to make a fire, right?
Oh, sure.
And he just walked me through that. And it only took about 2 to 4 minutes and explained the principles and the science behind it. And I was like,
yeah,
oh, duh. Like this is so obvious now. But at the time I didn't get it. And so just that little bit of instruction is helpful. Now, I didn't know this, but campfire chef. She is a campfire chef? Seriously?
I don't know. She's got more humility, perhaps, than she would to call herself that. But yes, she'll make these fantastic like desserts in a cast iron.
Oh my word!
Over cold. Yeah, this like she calls them dump cakes would be one of my favorites that she'll make. She'll do kind of these hobo dinners, which are like super simple but really filling. And actually, one of the things I run into when I'm camping is my diet kind of slips a little bit. So she's a lot better about how to incorporate those vegetables and stuff, so you actually feel full and feel like you ate a real meal.
Yeah. So does she go out there and help them hunt and kill local animals and then bring them back? No, just kidding.
That's right. Yeah. So it'll start with a spear crafting demonstration.
That's awesome. And now we just scared off all the listeners. So so campfire chef, she's using cast iron. Is she like throwing these, is she like hanging pots above fires and she has little grates she puts above the fire?
She's been known to do that. I don't know exactly what she's got on the menu this time around, but she has been known to do all sorts of fantastically creative exploits.
That's incredible. So I have like, I didn't like charcoal grilling because what I found out later, because of the fuel. I didn't like the taste of lighter fluid. I didn't know that. And so a friend of mine, see, we're learning about all the neat things I've learned throughout my life. This is like a history lesson of things I've learned. Well, just a friend of mine in Minneapolis told me, when I was living up there, he showed me like, just use a chimney starter and put these little, like put some, paper underneath it. And now I use like little Weber lighter cubes. They're like scent free and they leave no residue. They're really incredible.
Yeah.
But, like oh my word, when you cook with like lump charcoal, holy cow, that is the best flavor ever. So I'm just like, my mouth is watering thinking of campfire cooking class. So dump cakes, what else is she making?
I don't know what she's got on the menu
in the past. Like what has she made in the past though?
Oh, she likes to do like a kielbasa stir fry sort of thing.
Oh my word.
Yeah, a lot just simple stuff that's really simple, but it's exactly like you're describing, where if you've never had just the 2 minutes to do this, the 2 minutes to do this, all those little things that if you're out there by yourself, you like, oh, I thought I could just figure this out on the spot and I can't.
Yeah, so it's just those little technique
tricks
things.
Just these little tricks to preparation and how do you keep it clean? How do you minimize the amount of dishes you want to do? And then
that's a good point.
If you've never camped before, what are you supposed to do with your dishes?
We cook
after you're done. How do you do that without, you just Do you dump all the oil in a local waterway? No.
Absolutely not. Take it with you,
Yeah.
people. No, but this is interesting because cooking at home, we cook a lot, probably 4 times a week minimum. And it is very different when you have all your, and our kitchen is set up for it. We actually design, when we remodeled the house, we like redesigned the kitchen to accommodate how we cook.
Yeah.
But what, totally different ball game when you're out in, so you're teaching these families like how to do all the prep, how to cut everything, how to cook everything at the campsite.
Yep. Yeah. How do you want your fire built? Because that's going to matter based on what you're cooking. You think about if you're cooking those desserts, do you want it like roasting full bore? Like probably not. Do you want a little char on your kielbasa? You probably do want a little more flame to it than otherwise. So how do you, if you don't want to bring a tripod because you don't have space in your car or whatever, how might you be able to set one up? All that sort of stuff.
So she's talking about temperature control as well. There are ways to control like the heat and the temperature in an open flame.
Absolutely. And, where's going to be the right spot to position, how high above the fire, how low into the fire? Do you want to let the fire burn down and get to those just hot coals?
See,
so that it's high heat, but less intense,
Right there are a lot of things that I never even thought about. So I'm already learning something, vicariously through you, I guess. And what was her name again? I missed the name.
Abby Harkrader.
And does she work for you, or are you like bringing her in, or how's that work?
No, she's the other naturalist here. She's she might even be on here if she weren't out doing a field trip right now.
That is so cool. I love that a lot. So that's what I like about this is being able to take the uninitiated and make them initiated. It really removes a lot of the fear that most people have camping, and you don't have to, especially cooking your own food there too. That's just like the icing on the cake. I really love that.
Oh yeah.
And I can't. So
because that's the difference between enjoying a camping trip and like roughing it.
Right.
Honestly.
I know, absolutely. So for those that haven't,
creature comforts.
For those that haven't been, generally, what's the size of Clayton County campsite and all the prairies and the natural lands that you're managing? How big are we talking?
That's a good question. Most of our campsites are really pretty spacious compared to a lot of other sites. Anywhere from Bloody Run, where those things are a couple hundred square feet to each campsite, or our smaller sites would be like at Big Springs, which is right outside of Big Spring Trout Hatchery, the DNR facility. Those are smaller sites, but they're right on the Turkey River and out in the middle of nowhere and not super well traveled. So often nice and quiet with a few select weekends accepted.
So about how many, do you know, like how many parks, how many natural areas, how many acres that Clayton County manages?
Oh yeah, it's over 1,400 acres. We have, let's see, it's going to be 13 parks. Let me think about my campsite situation. There's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I believe it'll be 6 by the time we're done with our campsite or campground here at Osborne. Nope, I'm sorry, 7. There's one more down on the Mississippi River. I forgot. They
just added it during the call.
Just right, breaking news.
So obviously, earlier when we were setting this up, you were talking about trout, I think, right?
Yes.
Trout fishing.
Yep.
Because this is a big thing. Trout fishing. It's not something. I'm not an expert fisherman by any stretch. I couldn't tell you how to do any of it. But trout fishing is a big deal for people.
Oh yeah, very much so. So we have 3 different trout streams in our parks. We've got Joy Springs down in the southwest corner of the county. Buck Creek up here kind of towards the middle, and then up north is the northeast corner is the absolutely legendary Bloody Run, which is one of the finest trout streams in the entire state. Blue ribbon trout stream, like world class. People come from all over to come fish this stream.
Really?
Oh yeah. I mean, you can go out to Montana or out to like upstate New York or any of these other kind of big fly fishing destinations, trout fishing destinations, and they've heard of the Driftless. They've heard of this area. And it would not be surprising at all if most of them have heard of Bloody Run specifically. Like people come from Chicago every weekend, Milwaukee, really? Twin Cities, they'll come down to fish it. Oh yeah.
What is it about the area that makes it so appealing?
It grows absolutely incredibly beautiful trout for starters. So it's got brook trout, brown trout, and rainbow trout in there. stocked regularly by the DNR, so it's good fishing, generally speaking. It is quiet. One of the hardest things to find in Iowa is a place without road noise. And you can get way back on Bloody Run Creek. We've got 125 acres along it, and then the DNR has actually over 1,000 acres along the trout stream, going back all the way from Marquette to Spook Cave, which maybe people have seen Spook Cave driving through. That might only make sense to Northeast Iowans, but so it's peaceful, it's secluded. You get back there and you can actually, there's no buildings, there's no road noise, no nothing. You can really feel like wild Iowa, which is a thing that's, all but gone, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it's harder. It seems like it's harder to find these days. Just truly off the beaten path areas. When you say it's stocked, how often is it stocked? And are there no natural trout in the river system in Iowa?
There are. Yep. So there's a handful of places where we've got natural reproducing trout. Brook trout is the only species actually native to Iowa. Brown and rainbow trout were both brought here to enhance the fisheries. So they stock it monthly at Bloody Run and Joy Springs. Buck Creek, they might not stock if it gets too warm in the summertime. Trout need good cold water.
And that's basically to increase the density, essentially. Is that the idea?
That's a good question. I should know. I'm a naturalist, but I think it has more to do with the oxygenation. I could be wrong though. Somebody quote me. Email me, tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, I didn't know that it was this regional and national draw, Bloody Run. I've heard of it. I didn't really know much about it. So that's absolutely fascinating. People from Chicago coming over here or Illinois. It's fascinating.
Yep. And the other, big thing that it has going for it as far as the quality of the fishery is the substrate is a big part of it. So a lot of our other streams, depending on what the watershed is like, might get issues with silt. And those really sandy bottoms, brown trout will occupy that. Rainbow and brook trout don't like that so much. They need nice, rocky, lots of little places for their prey and their fry to hide in. They make their nests, in gravel. So Bloody Run that's a long story for another podcast. At present, it's a relatively unencumbered watershed.
Huh, that's interesting. I guess I had no idea when I think of trout fishing and, fly fishing and your waders and those, picturesque moments, I often think of other places than Iowa. I had no idea that was that popular in our backyard.
Oh yeah.
I promised to get to this with our last few minutes here. Sure. I did want to ask about this restored inn. Then if we have time, we can talk about the remnant prairie you have found. And I have some questions about that. But there's this 19th century inn at the Motor Mill Historic Site. Now, what is this about?
So the Motor Mill Historic Site is an absolute gem, and it's very famous. Like right around here, how many people from around the state have visited it? Not enough for how cool of a place it is. So the inn itself is a 6-story limestone grist mill that was built in 1867. It's this like monumental piece of architecture that comes out of nowhere like Brigadoon when you're floating down the Turkey River. And there was an associated town site with it. And most of those buildings kind of fell into disrepair. The mill went out of business in the 1890s, and it turned into just a family farm until the 1960s when the CCCB started acquiring some pieces of the site after the landowners donated it. And so this inn had just sat, for years, kind of like falling over and rotted and filled with rat snakes and all sorts of cool critters. And the Motor Mill Foundation had this brilliant idea so that people could actually stay in it and it could be like a kind of welcome center for the site. And again, a bunch of grant writing started, and just last summer we completed it. It's this now like wonderfully decorated in the 19th century style, sleeps up to 12 people.
Whoa.
Yep. Bathrooms, modern amenities as far as the appliances and stuff like that, kitchen, all that sort of stuff.
19th century look, but with running water and electricity.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, with 21st century amenities.
So is it subdivided up into a bunch of bedrooms, or is it kind of an Airbnb situation where you're looking for groups to rent the whole thing?
It's, more like that, more of the Airbnb style. So it's like if you got a family reunion or, any kind of gathering of like a retreat center sort of thing. Sleeps up to 12,
It's a massive.
Doesn't have to be 12 people.
Yeah.
But yeah, everybody would have their own bed. There's a couple of shared bedrooms in there, but yeah, closer to the Airbnb model.
So I'm assuming that is fairly close then to all these activities you're talking about. It's in the same general area, right?
Yeah. Clayton County's big, but Motor Mill and Osborne are pretty close together.
Yeah. So this is not crazy idea. This is not a crazy idea to come stay there, go do some classes, or go do, especially June 28th, go do some campfire cooking classes and learn. It's not crazy to. I mean, I'm sure it might be booked at this point, but it's not crazy to do that kind of experience on a given Iowa spring, summer, or fall day.
Yep, that's right. And the inn is open year round too. So. And that is a really cool place in the winter down there.
Last few seconds, are there plans to add more inns like that, or do more restoration projects to give people like areas right out in the middle of nowhere to stay? Are there plans to do that, or is the plan right now to focus on campsites? No new
construction. They're kind of that's their really long range plan down at the mill. Generally speaking, is to kind of get all those buildings back up to representing what it was like when the town was a town. You know, give it almost like a ghost town is the way I think of it.
Sure. Okay. So Motor Mill Historic Site long-term vision is to renovate those buildings and do more like dwelling or more rental, not rental, but more like
so there's like a big
Airbnb
stable
stuff.
That would like to make into, you know, if you had a wedding reception or something like that. We already do a lot of weddings down there at the mill, but having that kind of indoor rustic barn sort of reception area.
Yeah, I really like that idea. Give people kind of a destination to come to in Iowa. We need more of those in the corners of the state, I think.
We do. Yep.
No, absolutely fascinating. Kenny Slocum, Naturalist and Resource Manager at Clayton County Conservation. Thank you so much for coming on the show. What's the website people can go to sign up for these classes and to register to stay at the 19th Century Inn that has running water and electricity, by the way?
Yep. Thank you. So ClaytonCountyConservation.org is kind of our hub. That's where we've got a monthly blog that gets posted on there. Our newsletters get posted on there, events, information about all of our parks, all that good stuff. Kind of for those regular updates, you can sign up for to get an email blast basically whenever something drops in our news tab on the website. Or probably the best place is our Facebook to keep up directly with the events. And that's Clayton County Conservation on Facebook. And we have an Instagram as well. I would encourage people to follow. I post mostly pretty flowers on it. So
well, that's awesome. And we'll make sure to connect with you here after the show and get all the handles for those. We'll put those all on iowapodcast.com. Kenny Slocum, Clayton County Conservation. Thank you so much for coming on the Iowa Podcast. I had a blast.
Thanks for having me, Justin.
And to my fellow Iowans, Iowa expats, and Iowans at heart, thanks for listening and subscribing to the Iowa Podcast.